Welcome to this regular occurrence here at Make Music Your Life, the Make Music Your Life feedback party, where we get a few people together on Zoom and through the wonders of modern technology, I also stream it onto YouTube. So it's an unusual situation for me, and I've got two audiences, one in Zoom who you can only see occasionally when I decide to press this button. Who? Who's that? That's Jonah. Hello, Jonah. And people on YouTube. So we're going to play. The reason I have Jonah up is that we're going to play a piece of Jonah's music. So Jonah, well, first of all, when did you start using the automatic music machine? When was it?
2020.
2020.
I think it
Was
was
it pandemic
2020.
year?
I think it was pandemic year that I started. I've been doing bits of some other courses before that. I did the 11-day track attack, and I was on the mission Make Music Your Life for a while before I did the machine.
Okay.
So I'd got little bits of it, but I did the AMM in 2020.
Yeah, we were just talking about the difference it had made to your practice. Like, could you just describe how it's changed things for you?
So it's taken a lot of the emotional pain and angst that can appear around making music away. I think that's the main thing. And not to say that I don't sometimes sit down at the studio and go, "Oh, I can't be bothered to make music," because you still feel that. But getting
What you mean? It
over
hasn't
that
turned you into
hump.
a robot that never feels anything?
No, it's not done that. Fortunately or unfortunately. But what it does mean is that the ability to sit down and take a track that even that I'm not that inspired about, come up with some things I can do a 20-minute session on it, and usually within about 5 or 6 minutes I'm feeling more inspired and I'm getting more work done than I used to do in 3-hour sessions where I wanted to beat my brain against the table.
Yes.
So that's the main thing I would say, is just making music more enjoyable to make.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's very much. I mean, by removing many of the decisions, well, not exactly removing them, but you just make them at the right at a time which is appropriate to make them, and by separating the things out and just all of the organization and stuff is sort of taken over by a system that actually allows the magic to happen rather than destroying the magic. It does exactly the opposite. So cool. All right. Well, let's have a listen to your piece of music. So I want everyone to study Jonah's face very, very, very carefully as we play every single thing, particularly for any bits which might sound out of tune. All right. So let's just really.
Probably some the old tasty bit.
I'm joking.
Maybe more out of time. I've been fiddling with the timing. So
yeah. And if you're wondering, we're very, very familiar with Jonah. Jonah's been in mastery, and he's just become a Make Music life coach, which is why I said that. I won't be saying that with anyone else. I like to pull Jonah's leg, and I know he can take. He can take it. All right, so here we go. So just before I press play, where is this piece of music at in your creative process?
I think it's been done at least, and I've done a couple of sessions mixing it. So it's kind of still a little rough around the edges. I'm not 100% sure on the lyrical content of the verses, and I might stick some more kicks and snares in the break. But apart from that, the main body of it, I'm like fairly happy. If I mix it, it could go out.
Okay, cool. So basically, it's in the done column. So it's and I mean, you haven't yet made the final decision as to whether you want to release it or not to prepare it for release.
Not quite.
No,
I'm likely going to release it.
Okay. Well, don't judge until give it 7 days and then make that judgment. Brilliant. All right, so let's have a look. To stop waiting. Here we go. And I have nothing else to say. This was working just before, wasn't it? You could hear that, I presume. Could you?
I could hear it.
Yeah. Why can't I hear it? be something to do with this. Hang on. Apologies, folks. I had this working just before. Something has changed for me. Hang
on. It's so long since the fireplace. Our hearts like this again. Gotta get back to when I was young, feeling free and fun. Gotta get back to when I was young. There's beauty that we're here at all. We're born, we live, get sick, grow old. So I throw my head up against the rain and stop waiting for the clouds to part again. Took it like you were head on to a hurricane. Wind that cut your face, transient souls, it just comes and goes, never sticks around for the show. Gotta get back to when I was young, feeling free and fun. Gotta accept that change always comes. That's the face of it for us. There's beauty that we're here at all. We're born, we live, get sick, grow old. So I throw my head up against the rain and stop waiting for the clouds to part again. There's beauty that we're here at all. We're born, we grow old. So I throw my head up against the rain and stop waiting for the clouds to part again. Saw this coming, so maybe we'll evade. Are you awake or are you numbing? 'Cause we're only here until we There's beauty that we're here at all. We're born, we live, get sick, grow old. So I throw my head up against the rain and stop waiting for the clouds to part again. There's beauty that we're here at all. We're born, we live, get sick, grow old. So I throw my head up against the rain and stop waiting for the clouds to part again.
Great. So, Jonah, what? Listening back to that, what was your impression, first of all?
Composition wise, I thought it was all right. It was pretty good. I wasn't super inspired by the time the last chorus came around. I think that would maybe be made more interesting just with a key change or a tempo up or something more exciting happening. But I have listened to this quite a lot today, so I'm coming at it from a point of not being super objective about it. In terms of mix wise, yeah, I've been fiddling with the drums and they're a bit too dark and murky. The top high vocal,
just out of interest, that sounded intentional to me, and
yeah, it was a bit,
and so
I've just
kind of
maybe
liked
overdone it a touch. So a little bit more for overheads and rooms brought back in. I'm having a bit of a nightmare with my snare micing because it's picked up tons of hi-hat, and so on all the recordings that I did with this drummer, I've been having to like gate the room sounds to the snare to bring the snare out in the rooms.
I don't know. I mean, again, it's totally up to you, and you're the artist.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like it depends what you're trying to do. If you're trying to make it sound like a well-recorded drum kit, then fine. But is that actually what you're trying to do?
Not necessarily. I don't necessarily need it to sound good. I just want the snares to pop through a bit more, and I want a little bit more top end on it.
Right.
It doesn't have to sound like super sparkly hi-fi. I kind of want it to sound somewhat trashy. But,
yeah. Well. Yeah. I mean, okay. So let's ask. I mean, what is the purpose of this track?
It's one that's kind of changed a few times, but in general, a lot of the tunes that I've written, it kind of falls into a similar camp, where it's taking kind of everyday emotional subject material, kind of relationships and things, and then the chorus is kind of a "it's all right" kind of refrain.
Right.
You know.
Right. Okay. So it's
seeing a bigger picture.
All right. So it's like going from. How would you describe the two states it's going from and to?
Good question. I've not worked on this for a long time. I only came back to it today, so
okay.
I'm a little out of touch with it. But probably from somewhat moody and introspective to relieved and let's say joyful. Let's go with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are the two states.
I mean, I definitely got that. I definitely got that. And there was a clear. So we've got a purpose. So I'm just going through the paths model.
Cool.
So we've got a purpose. So there is a clear purpose. Hooks are abounding. There was something I've got to say about that, but we'll ask you about that. So we've got that. What would you say the thing is in this track?
Could be that kind of loose groove drum beat. Maybe the chorus vocal.
I think in this track, it's the chorus. It's actually the main chorus. I mean, obviously the chorus comes with a drum beat because the thing is often a combination of things. But in this particular case, I mean, I've got it going around in my head right now. Is that chorus?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that's what you're waiting for. So the thing is that, and this is like all of the other stuff we talk about in the past model is kind of known. You will hear other people talking about it, but the thing isn't really talked about. It's something that, as far as I know, it's something I've identified, which is the thing is the part or collection of parts that are playing when the most tension is released. That come back when the most tension is released. So often in pop, it's the chorus, right? And there's a clear and I mean you'll know it's the thing because that's when the payoff is, and there's definitely a payoff. It's just that it's the final chorus. It's the classic thing. But after the unexpected tension creating break with the strange drum thing, which was fantastic. What's going on? I was like keeping my fingers crossed that you weren't going to go off on some kind of crazy string break.
I came back
and brought it back. The arc, it followed an arc. It all made sense. There wasn't a point at which I was like, okay, so what's going on here? I knew what I was supposed to be listening to. Yeah. Space. I mean, you talked about the brightness of the drums and where, I mean, I don't know. To me, it does the job admirably to me. But I mean, it's obviously you're the artist. It's up to you what you do. I just thought those drums sounded just, I don't know. They had this kind of this filth about them that I really liked.
I was gonna lean into more filth, so I wasn't gonna get rid of that.
Okay, good, right. I mean, I think that's but that is the purpose. That's what the purpose is about. I mean, the bit I wanted to talk about was it's great as it is. So obviously, when I'm talking to you about this, leave it as is if that's what you want to do. But I'm just thinking about not exactly missed opportunities, but opportunities that are there if you wish to take them. And that's like really around the hook. So the one thing about choruses like that is, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Oh, hello, Luke. You've appeared on the on the screen. So Jonah needs to talk. Jonah? Hello, Jonah.
Hello.
Who's Jonah?
1, 2, 1.
There we go.
So
Jonah needs to talk. Right. Yeah. So one the thing about choruses like that is that if you're thinking about someone, it takes a few listens before they can sing along to it, because it's not. Because while you've got a repeating. While you've got a repeating sort of melody, it's like the words, take a while.
Roll through,
yeah. And I don't know whether it will work, but I was wondering if there was a little motif that you could, in sort of the middle section, sort of the bridge sections, take from the chorus and just repeat.
Oh, like a vocal, just part
little motif, just
a section of the chorus vocal.
I mean, what's the last line?
And stop waiting for the.
Which is like.
And stop waiting for the rain to.
So and stop
again?
waiting for the. It's just a brilliant. It's a brilliant.
Essentially,
line.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant line to have.
Rain to stop.
In between, because it literally does the thing that you're getting them to do, which is wait for the thing.
That's true. Yeah.
And because I mean, I was just thinking about I've got, like, because of that James Blake podcast with MMYL Melodies, I've been listening to his albums again for the 5 millionth time. And one of the things is that even though the music is quite can be quite sort of left field and sometimes, the reason it's so big, despite that, is because he's got this pop sensibility about what he does, where he's got these tiny little motifs that are just, it's like 3 words sometimes.
Yeah.
And they're so, it's almost like they're so basic, and they're put in this very unusual context, but that you can't get those little earworms out of your head. And the thing is, Jonah, you've got this natural, well, I don't know whether it's natural, you've probably practiced it, but it feels like, to everyone calls it talent, you've just done it loads, right? But you've got this, what feels like a natural talent for just super hooky little motifs. And I mean, it's a similar piece of feedback to the one I gave you the last time you did this, but I think this is like leaps and bounds ahead in that this is much simpler. And there is an opportunity there. Again, it might not work in this tune. I'm not saying it will, but that's just something to think about.
No, I think that's probably a good idea. I've been thinking about that break just because my tendency is to lean into, quick, put an orchestra in it, we'll have a break. And pretty much all my tunes do that when I was listening back to them, which, is something to maybe lean into. But I think keeping a bit more of a, like, maybe just put hi-hat in it and a vocal in that break would just keep the energy simmering a bit better.
And, or and even, I mean, I'm not saying do this, but again, something like, starting with a repetitive hook.
Yeah,
this isn't really about, it's more about arc, I suppose. It's arc and hook together, right? So it's more about, how do I make this tune, in the way that I structure it, really hook it, like super earwormy for people.
I think that's a good way to think about it.
Because
I need to have sorry.
Yeah, go on. No, go on.
I was just saying, I need to have another listen as well when I've not been mixing it on the day,
Yeah.
It's hard to trust whether that last chorus is.
Oh, the last chorus. I think. Do you know when you said I wasn't particularly inspired by the last chorus? I actually think it just paid off in spades, and I would do what you obviously like try whenever you want, but save this version, right? Because I feel like for my money, it feels like it works as it is.
Okay, cool.
It's like it doesn't for me lack anything, and it certainly doesn't need. Again, when you started talking about key changes, I was just like, are we gonna end up with the Berlin
kitchen sink
symphony orchestra?
Maybe all of the instruments should be saxophones.
Exactly. So
just for the final 10 minutes.
Yeah, because it sounds to me, given that you were working on it today, that the reason that it wasn't inspiring to you was the fact that you've been working on it today.
Yeah, that's what I reckon as well.
Brilliant. So Luke, was there anything that you had to say to Jonah about this one?
I would say that, as a fan of this kind of like sort of lo-fi-ish indie, I loved it. I really thoroughly loved it. That would be added to I have one playlist on Spotify where I just add tracks I like, and I'd probably listen to it like 20 times over the next week, anytime I got in the car. So, because you have this way with I think I touched on this last time with the guitar tone. And I don't want to talk about tone, but I think what it is that the space you create with the sounds you're using, they just it's like a painting or something. I don't know. They just work together texturally. I thought I really liked it.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And the other thing which was great was the way that you used the voices, and it's not like the hard panning going on and all kinds of and dry as anything and all sorts. It was really, really great. So nice. Don't change too much, but that's just that one thing. Just it's more of a just a taking something, seeing what you can do to make it. Because I think this one, with that chorus, it's just very catchy. It's just really, really catchy, and it's almost like, is there an opportunity there to make it even, make the track something
for more hook?
Yeah,
there's always an opportunity for more hook.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. All right, so
thanks a lot.
No worries. So now I'm going back to Slack over here where we've got more tracks and something from Ivan. Hello, Ivan. Are you there?
Hello.
Hi. All right. So hopefully, if I press play, because this is coming straight out of Slack, this will work. So let's have a listen.
Скажи, моя Катина,
Okay. Ooh,
Oh,
there we go. I thought I was going to do something else then. All right. So, Ivan, what difference has the automatic music machine made to your music making?
Well, first of all, the first stage of splurging, well, it helps me. Well, I've been practicing the splurge since a few years now. And just that has been, well, I've become really carefree in making music. So it's like a lot of more idea generation. I don't anymore depend on, I don't need to wait on feeling motivated or inspired. I can just make music every day and enjoy the process and the nice surprises that come here and then. So, and for that, I've been able also to, or maybe clarified the process, especially like the coming up with the purpose very like just after the splurge right now with the last version of the automatic music machine, which is super helpful to really just give a direction, even if it's just a guess. And yeah, it just makes the whole process simpler. There's less overall, just less time spent on a single track. And also this, I feel free because I have loads of ideas I can work on, and I'm really detached now from, well, much more detached than years ago, than before the learning this process.
Doesn't
so it's just
isn't so that to somebody who might not be aware, detachment sounds like a bad thing. Well, how is detachment a good thing?
Well, because I'm less precious about any single track. I know that even this one, I was really excited since the beginning. I still have the excitement, but from times to times in the process, that just changed. I was not like always super excited, but I don't care because I know that to me it's good enough. I will finish and release it anyway, and I can do other tracks. And I felt that I learned in the process. I enjoyed the process, and so that's a win anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So the non-attachment, shall we call it, that it doesn't mean that you don't feel anything for it. It just means that you're able to work through it. But I think there was I can't remember who it was just recently on the Slack community, just learning the automatic music machine for the first time. It says, I think it was like something like, how are we supposed to drum up the motivation and enthusiasm to work on a piece of music? And I was like, why do you have to drum up the motivation and enthusiasm? It's like, God, if I had to drum up the motivation and enthusiasm to work on music, I would very rarely do it. You don't need to do that. You just make music, and then sometimes you feel excited and sometimes you don't. And that may well sound like a bad thing, but it's not. It's just you actually feel much more excited much more often because you're doing the stuff that means that you do. And if it's almost like you're putting the motivation and excitement as a result of the process rather than as a prerequisite of having a process. So this being able to work no matter what is it unlocks the door to like massive amounts of music. Brilliant. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass you over to Luke, who's going to talk about this track. I'm just going to make you bigger on the YouTube live stream. Yep. So Luke, take it away.
hello, Ivan. How you doing?
Good, and you?
Great. I really enjoyed that. So first thing I'd like to ask, when you were listening, did you notice anything in particular, or because sometimes when you listen in front of people, it gives you a different perspective. You know what I mean?
One thought I had, maybe maybe it's could be lacking of contrast sometimes, but I don't know, maybe it's also I guess it's the purpose of the song to express the feeling of deep joy and contentment and feeling. That's what I say in the lyrics in French, something like how good we can feel when we don't need anything, basically when we got everything we need, and so there is this fulfillment. And so maybe it's not, I don't know, maybe the contrast with the bridge is enough. So that's the thought I had.
Okay, so what about it made you say there might not be enough contrast?
I don't know, maybe the fact that the energy is it's high almost all for all the song, beside the bridge maybe. I don't know. But again, I know that there are many songs like that, and if the purpose is that, so that could be okay like this.
So the purpose is to express, you said, deep joy and contentment with kind of having everything you need, essentially?
Yeah. And for example, the bridge, I thought also for purpose of the bridge that maybe I will add lyrics about that, but the idea was that to express also vulnerability and fragility, just to be conscious, like, because my idea was that if I am also a master of my feelings and of myself, that also means that I'm aware that I'm vulnerable, and so that was the idea behind the purpose of the bridge, and so that then addressed the choices I made for what was happening in the bridge.
Okay, so in the bridge, let's see what happened. There was a piano sound that comes in, right? Was that a piano?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what would you say is the thing in this track?
I guess the chorus and maybe the final one, which is just a simple way to, well, it goes with the structure, and I guess, and so that could be that. But I also think the drum loop with the sequence sound that.
Yeah, I think in this it's definitely that. This is more of an electronic type thing than, for instance, Jonah's one. This is more led by the groove. Definitely, it's almost like, what's the thing that if it's removed, you're waiting for, and that's what it is in this track. Definitely.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's definitely for me it was the and in combination with those really with the drums that come in right at the beginning. So let me think one thing I did notice that maybe I noticed that it's basically that I think that main sort of electronic loop is in for the majority of the track, right? If not the entirety.
Yeah. Maybe it's too much, too present, and maybe it could serve if it's just a bit removed a bit more. So we want it back. I don't know. Well, it's out in the bridge. It's out most of the bridge, but otherwise it's always there, I think.
Because I think one thing to give contentment is to create that, because once it comes in, you know that it's, or at least I was like, okay, this is the thing that's going to grab my hand and take me through whatever he does, right? And get me back home when I leave. So I think one way of creating contentment, at least from the way I look at it, is that if you take something away and I want it back and then you give it to me, then I get that contentment. But if it's always there, it almost becomes, it like blends into what's happening versus being able to use it as a means of being like, oh yes, it's there again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. And yeah, I think it's a good idea to remove it a bit more, because it's also, to me, it was the most exciting part of the track. So that's what got me excited with the combination with the drums since the beginning, from the splurge. And yeah, I wouldn't like to ever get bored of that. So that means to just to remove it for a while and feel happy every time that it's back again.
Yeah, because
you're going. Sorry, Luke. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, it's because if you took it out for like a verse or something, I think when it comes back in the chorus, it's just going to be this like, yes, you know what I mean? This, I'm content. But then, yeah.
So
did you have something?
This is one. Yeah, it's one of the things that I always used to slightly roll my eyes at when I used to play my music. I mean, this is why you want to be careful about playing your music to people who aren't you, who are the artist, in that they'll go, "Oh, that's my favorite bit, so you should do it more," and it's like, okay. I mean, I didn't say, I would never say anything but I wouldn't go, no, you're wrong, right? Because there's no point. But it's just, I would be like, okay, thanks, and completely ignore it. Because the thing, if you listen to, I'm going to keep on. I'm just going to use James Blake as the example for everything right now, because I'm completely obsessed with his music again for the 10th time. But basically, like, he will do something, and it's almost like counter to what I was saying with Jonah, where there are little motifs that he will repeat over and over again, but then there are bits that are like the money shot. That they're the thing. They're just the whole thing, and you'll just hear it once. And what does that mean that you do? If there's this thing that you absolutely love and you hear it once, what's your next action as a listener?
Well, you're waiting for it.
Well, so the tune finishes, and then what do you do?
You listen again.
Right. And then what do? You listen again, and then you listen again. And then the earworms become even more earwormy. And it's like, you've just got this, thing like that. And I think it's interesting that while this is a short track, so you could say, well, that break happens. So this is where we're talking about the arc now, just to go back to the paths model, right? So that, while the break happens, the sort of bridge, what you want to call it, happens 2 minutes 30 in, so that's quite early. But in relation to the length of the track, it's incredibly late. It's almost like if you're trying to express contentment, then you need to take the contentment away so that people know that it is contentment. Otherwise, it just becomes nothing. And I'm not saying it was nothing. It was great. And by the way, Ivan, listening to this track compared to the last thing I heard from you, it was a long time ago now. I think I just listened to something. This is just orders of magnitude better. So well done. It's like really, you've come on enormous. Not that the last thing was terrible either, but so that it's great. But it's I think where the work wants to be done, and you actually had it immediately. You said it could do with more contrast, and the reason for that is that you lose the effect of the purpose without that contrast. Because it feels like that anyway, and it immediately feels like that. So contentment doesn't have to go on a long time for you to feel contented, right? It's almost like take them there, and then take them, take it away. I mean, you could even, to be honest with you, that break is expressing contentment as well. It's not like the contrast is simply in the fact that there's not the beat and it's almost like a textual thing and a space thing. So it doesn't sound discontented, right? So it's not like some kind of, the contrast isn't expressed in an emotion. It's more of a sonic contrast. So I think putting that break early on would, I mean, you could even have two of them. I mean, I'm not saying do that or don't do that. I'm just a thing. But I mean, aside from that, I love the vocal. It's very hooky. I've got that going around in my head, even after just 3 minutes 30. Yeah, it sounds great. And as I said, the improvement, I mean, just shows what happens when you make a ton of music consistently, right?
Yeah, quantity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Jonah, did you have anything to say about this one?
Hello, there we go. Yeah, pretty similar, to be honest. I really liked it. I thought it was good. I did have to nip out to pee at the start, I'm afraid. But
because you were feeling discontented.
Yeah, I was. No, but what I did do is I whacked it up on the speakers to use it as the old test where you walk out the studio to see if it still works.
Oh, right.
And I could hear all the main melodies and the drums and everything and could tell what was going on, which is always good. Yeah, the main thing that I would do is kind of the same thing that's been said. I would just lean into the vulnerability thing that you were trying to create on the opposite. And if you were trying to create that with the piano, I think just bringing it down to something a lot smaller at some point, bringing out the main thing and piano and hi-hats or something.
There was one. There was one other thing. You reminded me of something actually, Jonah. Let me just play the groove again. I'm just going to have a quick listen. Okay, so this is around the hook, the H of paths in that. So if you listen to the right. I mean, the other thing is, by the way, having that happen at some point in the middle would make everyone go absolutely potty. Potty means nuts. Yeah. Just coming back to that and then kicking in again. That, I mean, just real simple. It's almost cheap that it's because it's so effective. But do you know what I mean? It's just
even if you know, it's one of those where even if you know that you've done it and you feel cheap about doing it, you still get the emotional reaction.
Oh, you really do? Yeah. It's just like what? God, what? Yeah, why not? So yeah. So if we listen to the hook there, right? Da 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 da, and then the da 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 that's question and answer. Now, something that it would help, I feel, with making it more hooky and also helping with the sort of spatial aspect of the groove is that if you had the answer on something else, I mean, it didn't have to be da da da, right? But it had the answer on something else that was far away, or over there, or over there. So it went da 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 woo da 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 da. I mean, you don't have to be so ridiculous, but it's almost like because then you could also have different. I mean, it doesn't have to be 4 different things. That would probably get a bit much. But have the occasional answer. I mean, I can't do it. I wouldn't know what would work without trying it, obviously. But something maybe like because you've got that lovely female vocal. I always love, and this is just me. I always love sighs and things like that. But but something very contrasting, because at the moment that hook, it's almost like it's just a through line all the way through, and so it's very static in a way. So by having the hook made of 2 or 3 things, which are also close, far, over there, you'll both create more of a sort of compelling through line, but also increase the sort of sense of depth and space. There's a lot you could do with that. Yeah, that's just a thought I had anyway.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for all the insights.
No worries. All right. Let's next victim. Cheers, Ivan. Well done. Is Ezra? Do we have Ezra in the house? Luke, can you see Ezra somewhere? Is he in there? No. All right, let's
He's
try.
on the call. He's on.
Is he?
But I can't see his.
All right, let's
Oh yeah,
go.
he's here. He's here. I can see him.
Hello, Ezra. Are you there? Is your mic on? If not, we'll go to Maitreya first, and then we'll go to Ezra next. Let's go to Maitreya. I've seen Maitreya. Maitreya's smiling face. All right, I've got this in. Are you there, Maitreya? To talk to? Let's play. Winter coat. Maitreya, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool. Hello.
Hello.
So, first of all, I'll ask the question. So, what difference does the automatic music machine make to
Hang
your
on, so,
music? Yeah.
so I've got music playing, which is.
Yeah, really?
Is that
Like, you
music
got-
playing?
Exactly.
Is that me?
Hang on a minute.
I think you're playing Ezra's tune.
Yeah. 2 secs. Stop. There we go.
Sounded
It's
great.
better.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's because
It's all
I
right.
can't hear it unless I. Anyway, it's very boring. So, I could only hear it with my headphones on. So, all right. So we're going to Maitreya first. Apologies for the interruption. So that wasn't Maitreya's tune. That was Ezra's tune. But now we're going back to Maitreya. Right. So,
Yeah,
Maitreya,
very
what,
different.
Yeah. What difference has the more automatic? Oh, well, first of all, how long have you been using the automatic
I've
music
been-
machine?
Since I think it's August 2020, so last almost 2 years.
Okay. And what difference has it made?
Well, I've always been someone who sketches, splurges, and familiar with the divergent part of the process. But I've always been hopeless at the we've got to kind of decide and finish it. Hence, I actually finished very little that I haven't been forced to finish. Yeah, and so with my own stuff, that was always something that's very difficult. And so the automatic music machine for me was just a way of being able to get out of my own way and to actually kind of locate the pain and taste it, and then just kind of get past it and go, oh, right, I'm just whinging about this, or oh, it's if I just do it anyway, I think it's absolute rubbish. Put it out anyway.
Because could you do? Am I right in thinking? I'm pretty sure I'm right in thinking this. I just want to make sure though. You make music for other people, like not.
I write library music, so I do a lot of collaborations with other writers, just making stock production music. So it's a very different thing. It's very much dealing with fixed briefs and things like that, and I can it is creative. It's not that it's not creative,
Of course, yes.
But it's and by the way, the automatic music machine's been great for that.
Oh yeah, no, I
as
mean
well.
that's the thing. It's like it's ridiculous
Yeah.
for that. Yeah, it's absurd
Yeah.
for that. You just
Yeah,
library. How many library albums do you want?
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
So, but this is a very, very common problem for people
Mm.
who make music for clients or to a brief, is that they can do it for that, no problem, but their own artist music is tricky to say the least. And that's one of the ways in which the automatic music machine, I think, helps, is that it's not that it creates the same situation at all. It just it kind of allows you to view your creative process in a slightly different way. And I mean, really, the purpose part of the automatic music machine, which is a relatively recent thing, actually is like you creating your own brief in a way. Cool. So in terms of this track that we're about to hear, not Ezra's track.
Yeah.
So in terms of the track we're about to hear, where is this at in terms of your process?
I think it's somewhere lurking between draft and done.
Okay, so
But
you're
there are things that I haven't done.
lurking between draft and done. Am I right in assuming that is a place where you might struggle? I mean, I kind of know this because we spoke about it already, but if it's the way you said lurking between draft and done, is sort of pointing to where there might be a kind of obstacle.
Yeah, definitely.
In general, what causes things to lurk between draft and done, Maitreya?
I think it's something to do with I like so many different kinds of music, and I like music that have cultures that aren't really compatible with each other. So I started playing music. Well, I became a musician in the 90s, and a few years before, spandex rock, wasn't a bad word. But then when I said I want to be a musician, it was a bad word. And if I dared say I like Whitesnake, then I wouldn't get any work.
Right.
And so I had to say I can, and then I had to kind of go into the world of indie. And the way that I kind of define indie, which I love, I do love a lot of indie, is it's the art of celebrating what you can't do.
Right.
And it's just just do it anyway. But I like a lot of other music as well. And so when it gets to draft and done, it's just I'm quite confused as to what I think this is, and I like it, but I'm also embarrassed by it as well.
Yeah, I know that feeling. That may well be the worst piece. I mean, it's not really a piece of advice, but I'm just telling you what I do in that situation. So don't take it as advice. If I feel embarrassed about, or possibly embarrassed about a piece of music, then that probably means that I need to release it.
Right.
It's almost like there's a it's like Marmite. English people will understand what I mean by Marmite. You either love it or you hate it. That is usually an indication that it's going to be something that's going to make an impact. If you're really unsure about it in that sense, it's almost like you're afraid of it. And it's not. I'm not talking about the doubt that happens at the end of every single creative process. That the doubt that signals that you're about to finish. I'm not talking about that kind of doubt. It's it's something more.
Yes.
And then you listen to it and you're like, oh, I've got to, but I just don't want to. I don't want. What will people think? That kind of that kind of where you're excited but are scared of the excitement. Maybe this is just complete nonsense idea. If it's not complete nonsense, then it's great. That sort of thing. Then my experience has been just that's a yes.
Right.
That's a hard yes, even though you don't feel like it. So, but anyway,
I mean, it's a funny thing because there's a lot of different. So it's that certainly with the different styles that I like, and I just can't get past my voice. There are moments I think, yeah, that's all right, that'll do, and then there are other times I think that sounds like Uncle Albert from Only Fools and Horses. I can't release that. It's yeah. So those
I love Uncle Albert from Only Fools and Horses.
Yeah, so do I, but not on an indie track.
Why not? Anyway, let's have a listen and see.
That's a fair point. That is a fair point.
Why not? Let's have a listen and find out. All right. So hopefully this works. Hang on, I've got to rewind. Rewind. Selector. Right, there we go.
Here it comes, here it is when I'm tired. Now it knows when it's time to strike the sinners at lunch or dinner. You would think that I would take it in my stride, all that I lost the need to hide the blisters in the coat for winter. When it's played out there, the same thing said, and I don't mind that it's not fair. There
now it's gone, it's not so bad. I can let it go. It's not the worst I've had. Given there are no winners, and it was played out just like you said, and that's why I kept my head and shoulders. Is this just older, bolder, older? Words still creeping and draw me out into the spin and send me round. Am I just wasting my time? Am I just wasting my time? Have I been wasting my time? Well, they can tell you how it is and how it should be. You can follow them or just be free to listen for your own deliverance. Am I just wasting my own time? Am I just wasting all my time with you? There it goes. Now it's gone, it's not so bad. I can let it go. It's not the worst I've had. Given there are no winners.
Awesome. I don't. Toward like in certain parts of that, I felt like there was certain shades of Pink Floyd in there.
Can't help myself.
Yeah. No, don't.
It's not a bad thing. to not
Yeah,
be
exactly. That was a compliment. Sure. Okay. All right. So let's let Jonah take this one, and I'll jump in annoyingly at some inopportune moment. So.
Excellent. So, how did you? What kind of feelings and thoughts came up about the track while you were listening to that one?
Well,
hang on,
first, hello.
Sorry.
The first minute was, oh my god, I can't believe that more than one person is hearing this right now, and I was squirming and writhing and squirming, and then after that I just listened to it and I thought, yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's just what it is, and I was just thinking what Mike said before, just release it, in that kind of let it go. Yeah, chuck it on Spotify, next, done. But I was also thinking, well, I haven't really made enough of the arc, and I could literally just mute a couple of things halfway through, and maybe, maybe create a little bit more contrast. And I did kind of cringe a little bit at some of the guitar stuff, just because, well, some of the guitar stuff, and also when I kind of raise the pitch of my voice, I can't tell whether it. I mean, obviously it was sincere when I performed the recording, but I don't know if it comes across as a bit cape-worthy, or whether it comes across as being sincere, and that's when I just think, oh, it's rubbish.
I mean, I wouldn't say it was rubbish by any means. I did really enjoy it. I think it's really well structured. In fact, before I give you too much thoughts, because I'm intrigued to just dig a bit more into what you were thinking about it. Which part were you thinking about when you were talking about arc? Which part of the arc were you thinking about dropping instruments out? Just out of curiosity.
I was thinking the second verse. The second verse could have had a bit more of a drop and then just built gradually, I think. But yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't necessarily notice a part where I thought this really needs less stuff, but that's not to say that it's not a great idea. Less stuff is almost always a good idea, taken from somebody who adds far too much stuff usually.
Well, that's one of the things that the automatic music machine has given me after doing so much discovery on so many discovery tracks, and then being frustrated why nothing was going into draft. I thought, oh, because it's all cluttered. I just need to learn a bit of economy and just take stuff out. And
What's the purpose of the track?
In terms of what I wanted to express, it was quite specific in that it was the mood of reflecting on a confrontational conversation where I kind of got drawn into the bit, and I just wish that I just kind of was a bit more Buddhist about the whole thing and just kind of let the other person do their thing. Go, okay.
So if you were to kind of discuss the states that you're expressing between the verses and the chorus, how would they be kind of divvied up?
It would be something cross between the disappointment and saying, oh, I wish I behaved better. The kind of more advice side, I'll do this next time. But then also the frustration of, but my voice wasn't heard, and mainly the disappointment of, oh, I got sucked into the drama.
Yeah, I think that came across. I definitely got the disappointment of getting sucked into the drama. And what was the second one you said? Sorry.
So more kind of advice for next time.
And that was, would you say that was the chorus that you were?
No, I think it was present in the lyrics, but not really. It wasn't represented by the music necessarily, I think.
Okay. What would you say you were expressing most of all in the chorus out of those three you mentioned?
I think the disappointment.
Okay.
And the frustration, but more, disappointment. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I got the lyrics didn't necessarily, but the general musicality of the chorus felt somewhat uplifting to me. I don't know if that rings true at all, but compared to the kind of verse, I thought you had some really good contrast and arc in it already, as I mentioned before. I didn't think that the guitar work was hackneyed or whatever. I can't remember exactly what the words were. I thought that was really good. The only thing that really jumped out to me was maybe playing with space a little more with the vocal, but this could just be a personal thing. And
as in sing less, like literally edit, recompose it so there's less going on vocally.
No, more as in placement of the vocal and the guitar as a mixed choice.
Right.
I wouldn't say compositionally I had any real problem with how much the vocal was in. What I wanted to ask you about actually was, so you mentioned that you were uncomfortable with the vocal a little bit and your vocal delivery. Do you have any ways you think that you could become more comfortable with the vocal as it was recorded at the minute, either with editing or mixing? Or
it's in terms of editing or mixing, no. No. I guess I could. I don't know. I've tried. I could compress it more and make it a bit more mushy, so it's less kind of there. But I'd have to try that. I don't know if that would work or not.
Can I ask a question about this? Because this is Jonah, you just asked the precise question that I was wanting to ask, which was, what is, so when you have a cringe like that, so that's something not to turn away from. It's a signal, right? There's something's going on. So it's almost like you want to ask yourself, rather than turning away from it and trying to, it's like literally ask yourself, what is it that's making me cringe? What are and it could be a number of different things. So what are the various different things that are making you, that made you squirm and cringe? Aside from the fact that you're just playing something for the first time and you are aware that people are on YouTube, I mean, obviously that enhances that problem, but there's probably something there that you were feeling anyway. So what is that based upon?
Well, it's something that's just been happening for a long time, which is the kind of regular loss of timbre, where there's certain nasal tones. And what I have done is I've gone back on this track and other tracks, and ironed those out and re-recorded those bits with a tone that feels a little bit more consistent. But then when I listen to it afterwards, I think, yeah, but this just doesn't really. It just feels a bit too soft, and it's not expressing anything. So I either have kind of too much variation where it's out of control, or it's just a bit too
okay.
uniform.
So you think it's a sort of a performance thing?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
Let me ask you, if what else could it be? So I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong about that, but I'm just wondering if there's something else, because if it's not, because it sounds to me like you've fixed that problem or improved that problem and you still feel it. So it could well be that you haven't fixed that specific problem, but the other possibility, because again, it's all about guesswork. Because as the composer, recorder, singer, performer, arranger, mix engineer, at the end of the day, you've got very little idea, because you're in the wrong position to actually be able to hear it clearly. So you got to use guesswork. I mean, you got to use guesswork just in life anyway, but like particularly in this position. So let's just assume that it's not just about tone. So what else might it be?
Connecting with and resonating with the material. But that's a bit more of a nebulous thing. That's a very difficult thing to quantify.
So when you say the material, what's at that point? What is the material? What is the material? What is the material?
The lyrics and the feeling behind them.
The lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
The lyrics, the melody.
Yes, the vocal rhythm. Actually, I haven't really thought about that.
Right. Okay. So because like I just let you know, I don't know why it is. I've got this strange thing where I just don't hear lyrics unless I specifically decide to. So all I heard when I listened to that was the notes and the rhythm and the performance and the space and everything else. So I don't know why it is that I then I listen to this and I'm like, oh right, this song's about that. Oh right, that's great. Yeah. So it's probably because I've been an instrumental musician for so long. So with the notes and the rhythm, with the melody and the rhythm, what's going on there?
The tuning, well, vocal tuning pitch-wise isn't too bad. I think the rhythm is a bit. I think it would help if it was a bit more in time. It would just. It would have a bit more of an urgency that works with the purpose, rather than kind of letting everything be late.
Right. Let me talk about the composition. Right. So, I can't sing it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a lot when I hear that back.
Yeah, but also it's got a very, what's the word? You know exactly what's going to happen next. It's almost like
yes.
Yes. Now, if you listen to someone like Tom York. He will do that, but there will just be, it's almost like he confounds that as much as he does that. Right? It's like it's pleasing. He sort of delivers what's expected, but in the context of what isn't. Yeah, it's almost like it's too, you use the word, but you were talking about the performance, I think. But I'm talking about the actual notes, in that it's very static in a way. Yeah, it's not moving you forward, because it's like this, that, this, that. This, that, this, that. and you're like, yeah, and it's like,
Yes.
and so it just has this feeling of, you said not going anywhere,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I think that might be something that is bothering you without you knowing it.
Yes. Yeah, I haven't considered that at all. And just as you sang the melody back to me, I thought, oh my God, there's no space in there at all.
Yeah, and it also, it's like a one figure repeated with the note up, and then the resolution, and it's like, it's just, and I mean that can work. Don't get me wrong, that can work, but it's almost like, for some reason in this particular piece of music, it's not that it isn't working. It's almost like it is working too well.
I understand. Yes. Yeah. It's making it a bit predictable, and
and going back to the purpose. So what was the purpose again?
Just reflections after kind of getting drawn into a drama kind of confrontation argument.
And again, I'm terrible with listening to music because it just takes me a while to listen to the lyrics. But in terms of at this point in the narrative, if you like, what's going on? What are you saying at this point?
Sorry, at which point?
Sorry, in the kind of verse melodies. The verse lyrics.
It's kind of, I guess, the verse lyrics are kind of describing or hinting at those situations. And then the chorus is more about the disappointment and the reflection afterwards.
Okay, so in other words, the verses are talking about situations in which you are
drawn into drama.
Okay, so you can see there that if you're talking about drama, if you're talking about, like, if you have a melody that is extremely expected, and it's like very non-dramatic.
Yes.
Right? It's almost like the opposite of the purpose. Right, and that might be something that your unconscious is telling you as well, that this isn't actually reflecting the purpose. This verse is doing the opposite.
Yes.
And the thing is, in order to get a good performance, you need to believe what it is that you are singing. And if there's a fundamental conflict between the melody itself, because like music's a metaphor for meaning. Well, I mean, it's not. It would be. I don't know. I'm not going to come up with a metaphor that doesn't. I have to do it all the time. But it's almost like a metaphor that doesn't describe the thing at all, right? Yeah. And it's not that it's a bad melody. I'm just thinking it's not the melody or it's not. Again, it can be a very similar melody, but there needs to be something in there that describes that drama. And getting drawn into. I mean, when I think about getting drawn into an argument or something like that, and I have no idea what you're talking about. My wife would disagree with that, of course. But anyway, but getting drawn into that kind of argument, you could imagine those melodies that aren't, they sort of stop a bit before and then it goes over the bar, and then so each kind of I don't want to. It's not a sentence, is it? But each little phrase is actually shorter than it's not as regular, and then it ends up resolving at the end. But
yes.
I mean, again, I wouldn't know how you would do this, but you could almost not resolve it, because that's not resolve. I mean, it's resolving all the time, and you're talking about getting drawn into an argument, which is by definition a non-resolution. So it's almost like you're not believing it, and then that's coming through. In a sense, what I guess I'm trying to say is maybe the performance worries you have are a symptom of the cause, which is that the melody isn't actually reflecting the purpose.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yes.
So
yeah, I could use more devices to create drama, and then that would then make the chorus it would be totally different.
Well, exactly. Yeah, because then the chorus it lands, and So yeah, is that?
So that's great.
Yeah, I mean, with the automatic music machine, we don't, while we don't believe every feeling that we have, we still investigate and guess whether they could be shining a light on a problem that we need to solve. And sometimes they go, no, actually, it's fine, right? But on other occasions, we do actually say, okay, so why do I, because to be squirming that much, writhing in your seat, and of course it's partially as well, it's probably the first time that you've had feedback on an unfinished piece of music, in public, but it's like, it could be telling us something. Yeah. So that's really
Can
cool.
I
Yeah.
throw another hat into the ring
course,
on
yeah.
that note? I'm not sure how you'll feel about this one because it's a little bit production orientated, but when talking about the kind of the vocal and not loving the vocal, this is something that I've come across a ton in my own music making as well. And what I thought when listening to this is you have made your task really hard because you've put the vocal very dry and very just very bare and very central, which is a really great thing for getting that vulnerability in the argument. But maybe if you're feeling uncomfortable with it to the point that it's slowing you down from releasing it, could be an idea to think about other ways to make it less uncomfortable to listen to for yourself, to make you want to release it more. There's a bit of a balancing act there to be found, but maybe just the classic of a little bit more reverb and a bit of drive on the vocal, even when you're recording it, might mean that you feel less self-conscious about it. I know it helps a lot for me when I come back to it, just to make it feel less like all the details are right there and you can't get away from them, kind of thing.
Yes, I'll do that, definitely.
Fantastic.
Yes,
just something to muck about with and find something you like.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. This is really, really good. Really good.
No worries at all. But it's great. Yeah, I mean, I was absolutely loving where it got to, and I was just, yeah, come on. so yeah, just I mean, just a little, mate. It could be just a little tweak. It could be almost the same melody, but just with something that draws you, that you're not. When I say you're not expecting, those delightful things that just. It's almost like they fall over themselves.
Yes.
And so it's less static, and I think you'll be you'll be away to the races, as they say. That's probably Uncle
Fantastic.
Albert from Only Fools and Horses would have said. All right, brilliant, Maitreya. So
cheers. Thank you very much.
Take care. So have we got Ezra? Yes, I see him there.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. All right, so I'm going to play a tune for the second time. From the start. Sorry about that. I didn't know it was playing. All very confusing. All right. Electric Bed. Sounds painful. Great. One thing I've noticed, Ezra, as I've been listening to your music over time, it's getting. I can hear it. It's getting more and more confident. It's like it's got this confidence about it that I know that it sounds a little bit like magical thinking, but
Like-
it's yeah.
There's music playing.
Oh no. Where? Where's that coming from? Oh, it's bloody SoundCloud on the playing, continuing to play. Why does it do that? All right, sorry about that. Yes, so when I listen to your music over, because I think you come to most feedback parties, or I've heard quite a few bits, and each time it's almost like there's a confidence that is growing in the way that you're making music, and to get more specific, it's not magical thinking that I'm talking about. It's like you're not like the rhythm is almost like a metronome in this. It's just like that, and that is just that's for this kind of music is magic. I mean, it feels like magic because it's like you're not trying too hard. You know what I mean? And so before anything else, I just want to say that it's just I've just noticed this progression from sort of someone who it was like who was less confident to is now much more confident in what you're doing. And just I'll ask you the same questions I've asked everyone else. What kind of impact? I mean, how long have you been using the automatic music machine? It's been a while, hasn't it?
It's a year and a half, I think.
Right, a year and a half. And what impact has it had on your music and your process?
Oh, yeah, I love it. It's a big change. I used to make a track like 3 months, 2 months, and now it's 1 week.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, enough said. And I mean, that's the thing. It's like it's going to take you a very long time to build the kind of confidence I'm talking about if you're making a track every 3 months. Whereas if you're making like one a week, obviously you're just on.
Yeah, I can also create in live a track.
Yes.
I build all this process and everything is. I even performed live. It's like you get more practice and you quicker in your thoughts and in your what you're doing. So you get professional.
Yeah. Exactly. Brilliant. All right. So I'm going to ask Luke to take this one to start with, and I'll jump in again, annoyingly, at a very inopportune moment. So, Luke, are you there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, Ezra. How are you doing?
Hi, Luke.
So the standard question. You've just listened to it in front of a bunch of people on Zoom and YouTube. The whole world has encountered your music. What were your thoughts, feelings? What were you cringing about? What were you like, oh, they're gonna love that? What came up?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I liked the reactions, and it was fun. And there were parts that I really liked, and I saw also that most enjoyed, and it's fun. And
What were the parts you really liked?
when the melody, the main solo enters, this is
The melody.
when she enters, it's like a new sound. You're not used to a sound like this, I think.
Yeah, I definitely felt when that came in, I was like, something. Yeah, I know the part you're talking about. What would you say is the purpose of this track?
Well, it's connected to bed in some way.
To bed?
Yeah, it's more like a passion track, I can say.
Okay. So it's more passionate. When you say it's more passionate, can you talk more about that?
It's have this warm feeling. You should get this sensual feeling on the skin. Your heart is a bit faster. This kind of this is the purpose of this track.
Okay, and that makes sense. What would you say? Do you feel that the way you have the track right now fulfills that purpose?
Yes, it always can be better. Yes, I'm not saying that I hit the target, but
yeah, right.
But this is how close I can get now.
What would you say? I'd be curious because I noticed the same thing because you've definitely, I think most of the feedback parties you've been to. What would you say is better about this piece in comparison to some of the pieces you played at previous feedback parties?
It's a good question, and I used to think about this question, but I never got to really think deeper about it. It's I don't know. It's like it's the same music, but it's a bit more precise, more with how said the mic. It said confidence. So that's the big difference.
More confident. Yeah, I do feel like it was more it can be kind of what's the word? I don't know, like people can kind of try to hide what the track is doing. You know what I mean? And I feel like this one, you're like, this is what this track is about. Here it is. And take it or leave it, where sometimes people can they put a bunch of it's almost like smoke and you didn't do this, but it's almost like smoke and mirrors in front of what the track really is about. You know what I mean? And I feel like yours has gotten a lot more clarity. Like what would you say is the thing in this track?
thing, well, it started to be a common thing in my tracks. It's the bass, or I play with the bass. It has this like wave, LFO. So if you listen to the track and you get hooked to it, you like the rest is like to only change the flow.
So you're talking about that the main kind of, I don't know what to call it. I guess the bass. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, because like, listening to it, I felt like the space, it definitely takes me to a particular space. I don't know what that space is exactly, but it's definitely it's got a, it's like an abstract picture, but it all works together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it all is kind of like referencing itself in a way where it all makes sense together, And I thought it was interesting. The melody that does come in is it's kind of you have this very like looping bass, and then the melody is almost it's very like exploring. You know what I mean? It's like it's going kind of all over the place. So you have this very thing that's just like that the main bass, and then the melody is it's nice, the contrast, because you don't always hear that, where in kind of this like, I don't know, techno world, you don't always have something that's that adventurous, I guess you could say. Does that make sense? So I did like that. It's a nice contrast. When I was listening to it, I was wondering if it could be cool, because to me, I would want to listen to it again, but to me, it felt like the melody part was very close to me, in like right up front. And what I wanted to feel was I wanted it to like go back with like a lot of reverb, and then come back up, like to give it, because like right now it's exploring notes, right? And I was thinking to kind of capitalize on that, you could have it not only explore the up and down notes, right, but have it explore the front and back notes. Because right now, well, I guess it kind of did, but it felt like it could have, it's like it's exploring, but to even heighten the contrast of what you've got going, put a, kind of move it front and back with reverb or filters or volume, and do that more instead of just kind of like taking. Does that make sense? That's just an idea. You don't have to do that by any means.
No, this is like before this version, I had this in draft remark exactly to do this to the. I had the same idea. Like
so did I. That was it. That was the same thing, because it sort of stays in the same place, and I wanted it to be moving. So, I wanted it to be moving around.
Yeah, I didn't do it well. I didn't do it well enough.
Yeah. There was one other thing just about the contrast idea. So, and again, this isn't something that you have to do, but just as and this is probably more of just something that I would have tried. So it's not necessarily a good thing to do, but again, it's that thing. I know the the main acid thing. Obviously, the point of it is that it just keeps going, and it's just there and goes up and down, and it does the same thing.
It's I'm doing this track, performing it live.
Yeah,
so
right.
The bass, I can always play with it. This is the fun part. When you're performing live, I like go crazy and do other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that it can, like when you have and it didn't get it. Like, I'm not saying this because it got too repetitive or anything like that, because that's the point of it, and it worked really well. And but one thing that I often try, at least, is I think, well, if I want to keep this the same but create contrast within it, what could I do? So you've already changed the filter. What are some other things that you could do? Because it might make a sort of a subtle but very effective moment if you do create contrast in that main part?
There are parts that each part is alone. If you mean.
Yeah, but with the acid part on its own, so what are the different? I mean, you don't want to change the notes because then it would be a different part, right? You're already changing the filter. Something that you could consider doing is actually changing the length of the notes.
Yeah, I'm doing it. I'm changing.
And then coming back, to it, because that would. It's not like you need relief from it, but it might be interesting. It might be interesting to try that just for a little section and then come back to the main thing, because what I'm looking for, because you don't, again, when I said it, you're not trying too hard, is that doesn't, like, not trying too hard doesn't mean, and again, I'm not saying that this is what this piece of music is, right? But not trying too hard doesn't mean making a boring piece of music. Right? So, and again, this isn't a boring piece of music, but when we don't try, it's almost like you don't overplay your hand. So I'm always looking for opportunities to create that sort of contrast, to create an effect without it having to be a massive, like, or something like that. And if you want to keep something the same, if you want to keep something the same all the way through, it depends what you mean by the same. And in this particular case, one of the fundamental aspects of this hook is that it is sustained. The notes are sustained, that they're long. Yeah, and if just for a section you just provided some relief from that, that will create enormous contrast without actually changing very much about it. And then come back again. Just as Luke said, it's a suggestion. I'm not sure it would make it better though, so you might well want to ignore it.
No, I'm doing it when I'm doing it when I'm doing the live in the recording, because it was just fast. It's only loops, so it repeats on itself.
Right.
But
right.
I have other in YouTube and stuff. I have their live and.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, brilliant, Ezra. Well, keep up making that enormous volume of music, because it's really having an impact. I just, you know what my favourite bit was that little falling over itself fill bit. That was the bit that really, I was just like, yeah. And then it kind of kicks in. Well, not really kicks in. It just kind of falls in again. I love stuff like that. It's like, yeah, just very, very. That is a very tiny thing that just gives me an enormous amount of satisfaction. So. Great work. Wonderful. All right. So we have one more. Brian, are you there?
Hi, I'm here. Yes.
Wonderful. Yes. So let's have a listen. I'm going to put my headphones on, and got to remember that SoundCloud auto plays. So I'll try and remember to stop it playing at the end of it. All right. There we go. Actually, before I press play, or before it plays, well, there we go. So, Brian, how long have you been? You're new to the automatic music machine? Am I right in saying that?
No. It's actually been 2 years.
Oh, it's been 2 years. It's just that we haven't seen you.
Well, I did. It was the Leap. Yeah.
I think
when I first started.
Let me just check. Hang on. 2 years ago.
Leap 6, I believe.
Oh, Brian. So of course, yeah, I remember now. Sorry. It's just because there's a bunch of Brians. All right.
Yeah,
so
there always are.
So what kind of a difference has the automatic music machine made to your process and music?
Yeah, so a lot. To start, it's given me the ability to finish and release music, solo music. So before, I had worked with a band and released a ton of music over more than a decade. But my solo music was sort of sitting on my hard drive, started, never finished, would get frustrated and give up, basically. So after this, I've been able to finish and release an EP. Second one is on the way, almost done, and countless other tracks in later stages. It's my quality has gone up a lot through it. So quantity and quality has gone up a lot. And I think most importantly, I just have so much more fun. I leap out of bed. I want to work on music. Before, I would stressed about practicing and learning this and learning that, and now I'm just constantly excited, and it's just a ton more fun.
Brilliant, awesome. Well, let's listen to "Floating into Space." Great. Stop. What, is it possible to turn off the autoplay feature on SoundCloud? I don't know. I've never worked it out. Anyway, Brian, I had shades of air going on there. But let's bring Jonah in to kick this off, and then I'll jump in again.
Hi.
Yeah, I really like that. Are you a Are you a 07 fan?
I've never heard 07. No.
Oh, you should. I think you'll.
Yeah, that's the other one.
Check that out right after this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
definitely.
I got 07 vibes in a good way. I
Awesome.
really like
Yeah, I'll
07.
check it out.
How did you find listening back to that?
Well, I mean, I should say I've already released that track, so definitely felt nerves just having other people listen to it. There are things about the mix and the quality of the sound that I would like to improve, but as far as the track, it's not really in a mental space where like I would change anything, if that makes sense. But mix wise, there's a lot I could see as far as things not being so opaque and kind of maybe existing in their own space a little bit better.
So if just to reframe the thought, because obviously if you've already released it, then don't want to give feedback that then you think, oh my god, I need to go take it down and put it back up again. But maybe rather, if you were thinking about things that you would change but not to this track to then use for later songs. Is there anything? What came up mix wise then in terms of?
Yeah. So, I think clutter is the best way to put it, the best general way to put it. But giving things their own space a little bit more. Yeah, I think that's really the main thing. Yeah, I don't know. This is my first time mixing anything too, so I have so much room to improve. For I already know, a ton of things
for a first go. Sound pretty good. That's it.
Oh, thank you very much.
The what's the purpose of it?
So the purpose, I mean, the title is Floating into Space. I think that kind of explains it, a little maybe surreal or psychedelic, sort of starting in your general, regular plane of reality and sort of kind of slowly floating into a different plane of perception.
Okay, cool. And so did you think about it kind of in sections like that, or were you thinking more of it as the arc of starting in one place and ending at the very end and somewhere different?
I would say mostly in like an arc, kind of generally in music. I generally just think about building, kind of starting small and having a big end, and then the middle kind of being the variable.
Okay. And the thing, what would you?
The
what do you reckon the thing is?
So, I mean, when I played it to people, I feel like they mentioned the groove, the way the drums and the bass work together. What really gets me is I think it's before the drum break, before the final section, there's this synth that comes in. It's like this Buchla synth that I put in there. And I meant for it just to kind of be like a quick impact kind of hit, but it just kind of went wild and kept going. And the MIDI was already triggered and I had recorded the whole thing. And I was like, oh, sounds kind of cool. And it ended up kind of being my favorite part of the track and kind of pulling things together. So for me, I kind of felt like that was the thing, but I'm not sure.
So is that's just a one shot that happens at that point in the track, is it?
It continues for the rest of it. So it happens at like the last break and then continues on for the rest of it.
I would probably disagree with you on the thing. Just maybe on I think I'd need to listen to it again, but it sounds like that's maybe more like the payoff moment, possibly, if that comes back.
I may have problems defining those.
So the thing tends to be easiest thought of as the thing that's basically what do you miss most and what creates the most tension when it's not there.
Okay.
So for me, from listening to that, I mean, I'm sure we'll have several different opinions, but I would probably say the bass, the drums, and maybe that whining melody line altogether.
Okay.
I'm
for
not
me,
sure
the
if
bass
Mike
and the drums.
would agree with that.
I would
bass
say
and the drums.
Yeah,
would you not put the melody line in there?
It's like there's just a sense that when it's not there, you're like, what are we waiting for? It's not necessarily your favorite thing. It's the thing that provides the right, it's back. That doesn't mean it's your favorite thing, right? So yeah. And I think this is one of the reasons it's never been sort of really talked about or described before. So for instance, in Michael Jackson's Thriller and in Mastery, we actually talked about this a lot. In Michael Jackson's Thriller, the thing isn't actually, it's not the chorus. It's actually the do 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 do. It's like the whole of that song is about coming back to that. It's what even the bit in the middle where it goes go go go. It's like I thought that was a thing, but when you actually listen to it, coming back to that is the thing, and it might not be your favorite bit, right? So yeah. And the reason it's important is because music is all about tension and release. And the thing is what comes back, which releases the most tension. So it's almost like this hidden thing that no one talks about, but which underpins all music. So yeah. Anyway, I'll let you continue, Jonah.
So just the things that jumped out to me most, I don't know if I'm jumping in too early with these thoughts, but well, so the thoughts you had, right, were about the mix, basically. It felt cluttered, and that's the main thing you felt listening back to it.
I mean, the main thing, there's also, I mean, I don't really know how to, I feel like this track doesn't really stand on its own. I feel like it could be part of a film soundtrack or a video game soundtrack. I don't see that as something necessarily bad. Maybe it's lacking vocals. For whatever reason, it doesn't seem to stand on its own to me. And I don't see that as a bad thing necessarily, but that is a feeling I do get from the track as well.
And what's what do you feel it's possibly missing that vocals would give it, or something like that?
Maybe a clearer definition of what the purpose is.
Okay. Anything else?
I mean, I guess just something for a listener to latch on to more, but that's, again, not necessarily so bad if it's lacking that. So
yeah, I think those both would develop it. I think the thing that stuck out to me is I also wanted a vocal in it. It didn't necessarily have to be a complicated vocal. I even maybe just kind of a vocal sound or a sigh, like Mike was saying before, might have tipped it. I think there was two things that stuck out to me that I would, or maybe three points that I would look at. One was you mentioned the spaces. I need to listen to it again, but from listening to it, when I listened to it at the start, I kind of got the floating in space thing fairly throughout, and I would possibly have pared that back so you get more of a we're in the real world, now we're in space. Just dial up the contrast on it.
Gotcha.
Have you got any thoughts about how you would maybe go about that?
I mean, first thing that comes to mind is pulling out instrumentation for the first part. Possibly pulling out the Rhodes, having kind of the piano do most of the work, and then have all the synth and Rhodes sort of instrumentation come in for the second part. Is the first thing that comes to mind as an idea.
It could work. Could be something to try in a later thing. Again, I'm not suggesting. If you're done with it, be done with it. Let me just think. Hang on, I've blanked. The thing that I think I was wanting the vocal for was to just have the parts or a part evolve a little more over it. What was nice is that kind of high string line you had did this really nice kind of walk down where the dynamics changed slightly and you added a couple of notes to it, and I thought that was really effective. And I just wanted a few more moments like that where the bass maybe evolved slightly in tone or timbre, or a couple of moments of not bass fills but kind of tweaks, and I think that would have just helped to develop the ideas in the individual parts a bit more. So that, I think that and the spaces were probably the things that stuck out to me. And I think if you had that development in like a synth line, like that high line or something else, filling that space that kind of had that kind of a bit more changing and evolving thing to it, then maybe the vocal, as you said, you wouldn't be needed as much.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that one, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, so if you hang on a minute. Sorry, I've just got to do this. I'm altering my Ecamm live, which is probably totally not best practice, but You know what I say? Best practice is worst practice. So there we go. So essentially, it's always interesting when because when we give feedback, we always ask first the person who we're giving feedback to what they thought, which is something probably quite unusual because usually people jump in with advice and opinions, and we often ask a lot of questions. We're selling a ride-on mower, and somebody has decided to turn it on outside. So hopefully that's not interfering with my vocal too much, my sounds too much. But and often what I've found is it kind of falls into two categories. The people's response is either what they're saying is pointing to a problem that we can hear as well, or it's exactly the opposite. They've got obsessed with something in particular, and actually that's not a problem at all, and it's just the process that has led to that. And I think in this case, Brian, you saying that it was cluttered it's similar to Maitreya in a way, in that I know what you mean, but I think it's less about having to take something out and more about, as you say, the mix, because there's a lot in a relatively small space, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's really about depth. So because we've got width, we've got height, and then we've got depth. And it's like everything exists in a kind of corridor of depth in this track. So you do get the sense of space like that, but it's almost like we're looking at space through a window, if that makes sense. So I'm not floating in space. There's someone floating in space out there, and I'm not in space. The space is out there. That's the sense that I get, if you like.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you.
So how could you create that depth? I mean, what would you do if you say, right? I mean, pretend you were going to go back and don't, but pretend you were going to go back and work on this particular piece of music. So what could you do to create that sense of like extreme depth where it's like the infinite space?
Yeah, again, as a real novice mix engineer, I would just put a ton of reverb on it. That's my first inclination.
Yeah, so this is important. It being what?
The like synth leads and pads, I would say like high mids and highs kind of, and fills and impacts and the parts of the track that aren't the main parts.
Okay, so that's really important. So it's actually really easy to create a massive sense of space, and it's sometimes much easier to do it if you just if you can put enormous reverbs on just little, for instance, a clap every, I don't know, 4 bars even, right? It's just like an extra thing, and it's just like way off in the distance. If you're a novice mix engineer, I would avoid putting too much reverb on things that are playing all the time, because you're just going to have all causing all kinds of issues. So, but just by adding that sort of set, and the other thing is also making sure that some of the parts are like really, because obviously depth is, if everything's far away, then nothing's far away. If everything's close up, then, yeah. So it's like, obviously the bass is already up there like that, but it's like sometimes just a little bit of ambience or something will make it seem even closer, right? But those little moves. Also, something else that you can do is, because as things get further away from you, they get more muffled. So choosing the odd part in here and there just to sort of dial down the high end is another way of doing it as well. And I think even without, I mean, I'm always up for removing parts, but I think what's usually missing is simplicity. When people say, what's missing from this track? There's too much, there isn't anything missing, it's the opposite. But in this track, it's not, I don't think it's cluttered because you've overdone the complexity. Yeah, it's more that it sounds cluttered because it all exists in that, as I say, corridor of depth. Yeah. And then, also in terms of development for as Jonah was talking about, and this is where you might want to think about removing things. You could, development can happen in a number of different ways. One is that it can happen by the notes that the part is playing, or what the part is doing, but also there is structural development as well. So it can be very, very simple as just removing everything and just it's an old chestnut that I always used to bring out, which is just breaking everything down to just the kick in the bass, or the drum beat in the bass, creates a contrast that is enormous, and also a sense of it going somewhere, a sense of something developing. So it's not the case that right now I've brought everything in. Oh no, now what do I do? Well, why not just take everything out again? Again, you don't necessarily always want to do that, but sometimes it can be as simple as that. And thinking about, right, well, if I was to develop this part just structurally, and think about this, develop this piece of music structurally, just so that, okay, I'm going to start here, and then it's going to lead to this little peak here. But it's not the final peak because the payoff's over here. And then I'm going to come down. I'm going to come down again. And then in a slightly different way, introduce things. And then that will lead to the payoff. That's often without changing anything, just a slight rearrangement like that makes it less, because you were talking about, it feels like it doesn't stand on its own. And I think, again, it's the reason is that what I'm talking about now. And yes, of course, you can develop the individual parts, but if you even take a simpler version, well, how would I do it with these parts? Really, in its kind of simplest, most basic way of explaining it, it's like, well, what are the different combinations? And what do those combinations feel like when I hear them? Yeah. And then, okay, so this particular combination is it has a different vibe or a different feel, or it means something different. Right now I'm in the airlock or something. It has that kind of a feeling. All right. So, and that combination just sounds like the others, or that combination, and then there's this one. Oh, no, this sounds different. Right. So where can these sort of fit in the journey of where we're going? And it really can be as simple as that. But that will often create a lot more interest without having to introduce anything else. So it's
great, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah. It's like really just what's this? This is why I often will kind of celebrate. I say, I am a lazy music producer. I am a lazy musician, and I'll be proud of it. Because I'm always looking for the simplest way of getting the maximum result, minimum effort, maximum result. Because that actually is more understandable to people as well. I think people make the mistake of going, right, what's the most complicated route to getting the maximum result? And as a result, they get a minimum result. So it's like by leveraging that kind of that simplicity, you'll just, and you hear it all the time in the best music. It's like, well, how do they make it so simple? It's because they're really using minimum effort in a sense. Obviously there's been a lot of effort over the years to get to that point, but in their music, it's almost minimum amount for maximum result. Brilliant, Brian. Nice work. I'll look forward to hearing some more in the future. No worries at all. Okay, so I think that's a wrap on this particular feedback party. We'll have another in another couple of months, I would think. So thanks for joining, everyone. It's been great to hear everyone's music. We've got another class of the Automatic Music Machine starting in 3 weeks, I think. So yeah, there should be a link in the description for checking that out if you want to check it out and you haven't joined. As you can see, we have all different kinds of music: house, techno, folk, rock, and everything in between, hip hop. the works. So if you'd like to make enormous amounts of progress, and as you've heard, crucially, have much more fun making music and not feel that you have to force yourself or have a 4-hour stretch of time just to get started. The Automatic Music Machine is all about making loads of music and getting better in the context of a busy life. So if you're interested in that, click the link in the description. And if not, no worries. I will see you here again soon on YouTube. So as ever, onwards and upwards.